Hey everybody, welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Tucker Sennett, your lead beat writer for NC State on SI. Um, Here in Raleigh, ready to talk some more Wolfpack football today. Shorter episode today. We're going to be looking at and predicting NC State football's toughest game in the 2025 season. Now, to be able to predict, you got to know what the schedule is. So we'll run through the schedule real quick here. Um, the Wolfpack open the season in a few weeks against, or to almost, we're getting coming up on 3 weeks today. Um, they open up the season against East Carolina. Obviously, we've talked about the Wolfpack uh, losing to East Carolina in the Military Bowl a year ago, and the disappointment that that caused. So Wolfpack are back, and looking to avenge that loss. Then NC State's going to face UVA in the second week, a game that's weirdly not a conference game. It was a part of a pre-existing deal. So they'll face the Cavaliers at home. Then they're going to go on the road to face Wake Forest on a short week. It's a Thursday night game against Wake. Um, then they'll play Duke the following week. There's no day for that, but it can I would guess it'll be a Friday or Saturday game. They won't play back-to-back Thursday games. Um, then they'll face Virginia Tech at home. That'll be the team's first or second official conference game. Um, and then they'll face FCS opponent Campbell before they leave North Carolina for the first time the entire year, as those two road games are against schools in North Carolina. Their first trip out of the state will be on October 11th against Notre Dame. Notre Dame was just announced as the number 5 team in the opening coaches poll. Obviously, the coaches poll is not the preferred polling system, but it gives us a good idea of where the AP is going to go. So we can expect Notre Dame to be a top 10 team for certain. Then they'll play against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh on the road there. Come back for Georgia Tech at home, a tough Georgia Tech team that received some votes in the coaches poll. You can expect them to be hovering around bowl eligibility this year, if not better. Then another likely to be ranked opponent going into the season, the Miami Hurricanes. Dave Doran and NC State will travel down to Miami um, to face Carson Beck and the new Miami Hurricane squad. And then they'll come home for another short week, a Friday night game against FSU, and then finish the season with that rivalry game against North Carolina the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So, looking at the schedule, and we'll do a more in-depth review of the schedule later on as we get closer to the season. But those last 6 weeks are a gauntlet, both in terms of travel and scheduling. It's a really difficult stretch. Um, the opponents are all going to be, either teams fighting in the likely same area as NC State in the ACC standings, or these some of these teams are going to be fighting for playoff contention. So that doesn't make things easy. So what I've done is I've narrowed it down to 3 options for the toughest game in the 2025 season. Those options are that Notre Dame game on the road, October 11th, the Miami game on the road, and the Florida State short week game leading into the Thanksgiving rivalry week. Now, the Miami game, the reason it will be difficult is simply because it's Miami. I mean, this is a program that was on the cusp of making the college football playoff a year ago before an absolute collapse in Syracuse caused and essentially ended their season. They just fell apart in that game, and the issues with their season and the reason this matchup is not NC State's most difficult kind of revolve around Carson Beck because this is a team that proved last year it could rally around a transfer quarterback. It could rally around sort of guys plugged in from the transfer portal, more or less on 1 year deals. The other game that's not going to meet this criteria is a victim of this, or was a victim of this issue last year. But sometimes these teams that are assembled like mercenary squads, they don't gel in the right way, and they end up quitting sort of into the year. They fall apart chemistry wise, and Carson Beck is a solid quarterback. He's not Cam Ward. That's pretty clear. And I'm not sure that the leadership qualities are there with him. There's a reason Georgia felt pretty confident despite losing him, and feels pretty confident going into the season. Now, Miami could be great. They have the tools to be great. They have what will it would be hard to see the defense being any worse than it was last year. They made some upgrades in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and they have a stable of really strong running backs, but they lost a ton of pass catchers. Restrepo's gone, Arroyo's gone. Those are guys that helped carry Ward to a near Heisman win last year. So Miami's not the answer, um, for those reasons. The other option, Florida State on a short week. Florida State was the team that I alluded to that fell apart in large part due to these mercenary hires last year. It worked wonderfully for them until Jordan Travis got hurt 2 years ago. Um, and obviously, we know what happened with the fallout of them not making the college football playoff. But this is a team that has opted for portal warfare. They really believe that experienced players that come in for a year make a huge difference and can lead the team to an improved status. But I just the bottom could fall out again. We saw it happen last year with a team that was supposedly loaded with talent and projected to be one of the top teams in the ACC, and they were awful in all regards. So this is a team that could quit. We've seen it happen under Norvell, and it's a possibility that you have to take into account. On top of that, Florida State has struggled against NC State, particularly in Raleigh, and that's where that game is this year on a short week, which affects both teams because NC State will probably be coming off of a loss to Miami if Miami is who we think they will be. But they, could be coming off an emotional high from an upset victory, which is also a cause for a letdown. So, this game's tricky on the short week, but the struggles are real for Florida State. They've lost their last three games in Raleigh. Um, NC State has played them really, really well. And NC State is 7-5 over the last 25 years against Florida State at home. So it's not a dominant matchup for NC State at home, but it's a matchup that they've proven they can win against competitive and high level Florida State teams. Florida State's not the answer. So that leaves us with one option, and that's the road game at Notre Dame. The answer is Notre Dame for a lot of reasons. Notre Dame's going to be a top five team in the country. Um, South Bend is one of the toughest road atmospheres in all of college football. This is a place where teams have struggled. I mean, we saw it in the college football playoff last year. That was an electric atmosphere where Indiana just got absolutely dominated. And Notre Dame plays a schedule that is essentially created to ensure that there's no ifs, ands, or buts. If the team is strong enough to make the college football playoff, they will, based on the schedule. So they are the NC State game falls in a unique spot on their schedule where it's a three-game homestand. They'll be coming off of a game against Boise State, who also were ranked in the coaches poll. Obviously, they lost Ashton Genty, but this is a team that was in the college football playoff and had a bye last year. Whether you agree with that decision or not doesn't really matter. It's a team that has proven to be able to compete with power conference opponents. So that could be a letdown game for Notre Dame. And let's say they lose that game and you got NC State coming in, maybe, I mean, they could be undefeated. They could be 4-2. They could be 3-3. The bottom could fall out on the season and they're below 500. But there's a lot of scenarios where NC State comes into this game competitive and gets dominated thoroughly by a Notre Dame team looking to recover from either a disappointing performance that has them dropping in the polls or a flat out loss, which we've seen happen with Notre Dame. We saw it last year with the debacle against Northern Illinois. So that's a risk that you certainly have to account for. The other issue is if this NC State defense struggles as much as it did in 2024 in the coming season, Notre Dame is an absolute nightmare matchup because this is a team that's going to run, and run some more. They have a potential Heisman candidate in Jeremiah Love. And the one thing that's consistent about Notre Dame, besides the gold helmets, Notre Dame's always going to have road graders on that offensive line. They're going to push people around. They're going to play a physical brand of football, especially in this era under Marcus Freeman. But they've always had good offensive linemen. They're going to have a good offensive line this year. Um, and if that's the case, this NC State defense, especially a weaker linebacker core potentially, could absolutely get manhandled in this game on the road. It's really it's really it's hard to pick another game than this Notre Dame game. Notre Dame historically they have bad games under Freeman where you can get them, but they're early in the season, typically against like an FCS opponent. This year they have Purdue at home early in the season after two huge games to start the season. So my guess is their letdown already happened by the time NC State arrives in South Bend. And that's just not good for NC State because this will likely be a motivated team fighting for a spot in the college football playoff. And so there you have it, Notre Dame, October 11th, Peacock, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time kick will be North Carolina State's toughest game in the 2025 season. For more analysis, breakdowns, news, follow at Senate Tucker on X and at Wolfpack on SI on X as well, for all your Wolfpack news. And go to our website for stories, analysis, breakdowns, more podcasts, everything you would want about your NC State Wolfpack. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.